Well, good morning, everyone. We are, it's great to see so many here in spite of the stormy weather. If you're watching on live stream from elsewhere, we've got a bit of a snowstorm this morning. I understand we've got quite a number of people watching from Latvia, including Father Ronald's mother. Let's all turn around and wave at the camera, wave at Father Ronald's mother. There we go. There you go. So, put out into the deep, an invitation that Jesus gives to those who would become his first followers. And through the Word of God, living and active, that invitation is extended to every single follower of Jesus, those who desire to follow him. He invites us to put out into the deep. He speaks to us this morning through his word, inviting us to put out into the deep. Now, I don't know about you, but going out into deep water, it sounds a little bit ominous, doesn't it? Anyone with me on this? Put out into the deep. I kind of like shallow water myself. I mean, when I'm in water, I like being able to touch the ground with my feet. Anyone with me? And besides, I've always been a bit uncomfortable in deep water ever since I watched a certain movie when I was a kid. You know which one it is? Jaws, that's right. I always think that something's going to be nibbling on my toes. You know, when I saw this movie when I was 10 years old, I was scared to take a bath for a whole month. So going into deep water is kind of scary, but it's also kind of exciting. Put out into the deep. The deep is a place of discovery, a place of mystery, risk, adventure, fear, and excitement. And one thing that it is most definitely not is boring. Following Jesus is about discovery. It's about risk and adventure, fear and excitement. And if your experience of Christianity has been boring, I can categorically tell you that you've been doing it wrong. Jesus invites us into the deep water. It's an invitation, so we're free to go into the deep, or we can say, no, thank you. I'm going to stay where I am, in the shallow water. But here's the thing about staying in the shallow water. In shallow water, we develop shallow faith. And shallow faith is shallow. It's often irrelevant, it's weak, and is often fruitless as well. Sadly, this has been, I believe, the experience of faith that many Catholics who have left the church. This is their experience of faith. They've walked away from faith. They've walked away from an experience of faith that asks little of them and offers little to them. And as a result, there's kind of I've been there and done that, and I got the t-shirt mindset. Oops. Sorry. Seem to be having connection problems. Okay, sorry. This is, okay. All right, let's try that again. See if we get back on track. And so this mindset that we've somehow, I've tried that. It didn't work for me. And there's a sense often that if you want a spirituality that's actually going to be impactful in your life, that's actually going to make a difference, well, you should probably go become a Buddhist or do yoga or something like that, but don't bother with Christianity. But sadly, what has been rejected is often a shallow caricature of Christianity. Dwelling in the shallow water results in shallow faith, but in deep water, we develop deep faith. I remember when I was in the seminary, it was the first month in the seminary, we had a professor. He was a really impressive guy. He was Hungarian. He was from Hungary. He was a bishop and a Jesuit. He was like the bishop in charge of all Hungarian people outside of Hungary. So he traveled a lot. But he was a theologian, and a brilliant theologian, and he was about 6'4", and he was kind of intimidating. It didn't help that his name was Attila, as in Attila the Hun, right? You know, and actually, Attila is a very common name in Hungary. He actually was a beautiful guy. He was a wonderful man. But he was preaching on this gospel, and I still remember him. He stood at the front, and he waved his hands, and he said in a very loud, booming voice, he said, "Duc in altum." Those words right there on the screen, "Duc in altum." Now that's the Latin for go into the deep. And he stood there and he repeated it. And he beseeched us, he begged us to go into the deep. He said, "You've got 5 years here in the seminary. Don't waste your time in the shallow water. Go out into the deep water and let down your nets for a catch." Duc in altum. I've never forgotten that, but here's the thing. This invocation or this invitation doesn't just apply to people who are going to the seminary. It applies to every follower of Jesus. Duc in altum. Don't stay in the shallow water. Come into the deep. Go into the deep and let down your nets for a catch. If we go into the deep water, it will be a place of discovery, a place of risk and adventure, fear and excitement, and it will bring us to our knees. Just like what happened to Simon, the skeptical Simon, maybe the slightly cynical Simon. I mean, what would you have done if you had been out fishing all night and caught nothing, and then some religious dude is telling you what to do? I'm sure he kind of rolled his eyes. It's like, okay, we'll go back out. Simon is obedient, and his journey into the deep results in the miraculous catch of fish. As he goes into the deep water, he comes face to face with the deep power and mystery of Jesus. And this brings him to his knees, and he speaks these famous words, "Depart from me, Lord, for I am a sinful man." As he encounters the mystery of God, he becomes simultaneously aware of his own weakness, his own brokenness, his own poverty, his own sinfulness, his unworthiness. Just like we heard in the first reading with the prophet Isaiah, a similar reaction to the majesty of God. And yet at this moment, it becomes a defining moment in the life of Simon. As Jesus not only does not depart from him, but Jesus looks at him with mercy, with love, and chooses him. Do not be afraid. From now on, you will be catching people. Now, this reminds me of something that Pope Francis said quite a number of years ago. I think it was in his first year of his pontificate. He did an interview in a magazine, and the interviewers asked him the following question: "Who is Jorge Mario Bergoglio?" And he paused, and then he answered, and he said these words. He said, "I am a sinner whom the Lord has looked upon." You see, if he had just said, "Well, I'm a sinner," that's not the whole truth. That's only partly true. I'm a sinner whom the Lord has looked upon. He went on to describe an experience of mercy that had changed his life when he was a young man. And he also talked about his favorite painting. He says it's a painting by the artist Caravaggio, an Italian Renaissance artist, and the painting is called The Call of Levi. Now, it might be familiar to some of you. Some of you may have seen this. It actually hangs in a church not far from the Piazza Navona in Rome. Often, if I'm in Rome, I always try to go to visit this church that has this incredible painting in it. Caravaggio is known for his vibrant colors, his use of light. And you can see the light coming in from some unseen window, focusing on the person of Matthew, or Levi, as he's also known as. And you see the hand of Jesus. Jesus at the right, his hand is reaching out and pointing at Matthew. And what is Matthew saying? What's his reaction? What's he thinking? Me? Are you kidding? Are you serious? You're choosing me? And Pope Francis says this is the moment, right here. This simultaneous realization of my unworthiness, my brokenness, my sinfulness, and also that the Lord is looking upon me and choosing me and saying, do not be afraid. Come and follow me. And brothers and sisters, this is what happens when we put out into the deep. We encounter the Lord in this way. And so it's an invitation Jesus gives to every single one of us. Now, perhaps some of us here today are like, all right, I'm ready. I've got my flippers, I've got my snorkel. I'm jumping in all the way. No problem. I'm with you. Perhaps others of us here today are like Peter. You've maybe been out all night and you're like a little skeptical. You've been there before. You didn't catch anything. You're like, I don't know. Perhaps some of you have been in the shallow water for much of your Christian life. And the deep water looks a bit risky. And you saw Jaws 10 years ago and, just not so keen on deep water. Perhaps some of us are listening to this homily and thinking, water, I'm standing on the sand. I'm still on the beach. But here's the truth. No matter where you are in your response to Jesus, the invitation is the same. The invitation, it's not that some are invited to the deep and others aren't. We're all invited to the deep water because that is the place where we encounter the mystery of God. And the Lord is patient with us. And the Lord invites us to trust Him, to step forward. Because it is in the deep water where the adventure begins. It's where we encounter the mystery of God in a way in which our lives will never be the same. Now, did you know that there are 3 weeks to go? What am I talking about? It's okay, you can say it. Lent, that's right. Lent is in 3 weeks. You might be thinking, didn't we just have Christmas? Yes, we just had Christmas. But Lent is in 3 weeks. And Lent, as you may know, is a time of spiritual renewal. And remember that this Lent is unique in that it's taking place in what is called a holy year. We spoke about the Jubilee year a few weeks ago. Every 25 years, there's a holy year. And so this is Lent in a year of Jubilee. So I'm thinking it's going to be a great Lent. It's going to be amazing. And one of the things that we do every Lent is we have a parish retreat. We call it a parish mission, a Lenten mission. And we have evening sessions, Sunday, Monday, Tuesday. We have morning sessions, and the speaker comes and speaks during the weekend as well. Well, this year we're incredibly blessed to be having an amazing speaker who's going to come and join us. And her name is Michelle Moran. And some of you might know about her. mission is March 22nd to 25th. Now, Michelle is, I love hearing her talk. She's a fiery, on-fire, passionate speaker who, she's from England, she's from Yorkshire. So if you've ever watched Downton Abbey, she speaks not like the posh people, but like the regular people. And she's got that strong accent and passion that she brings to what she does. Here's a picture of her hanging out with the Pope. And so we're very blessed. Like she's actually very well known. And so we're very, very excited about what this can mean for us. I believe that we're going to have the full parish mission, but she's also going to be doing a day for women, a special invitation to the women of our parish on the Saturday as well. I wanted to plant the seeds for this event now because I know that Michelle is going to bring us into the deep. And she will help us to encounter the person, the mystery, and the power of Jesus, who looks at us, who loves us, who sees us for who we are, and yet still chooses us and tells us, do not be afraid.